So much for tuning in to the stream or on YouTube today. I'm really excited to jump into our set 4 meta analysis. But before we get in there, I want to give a little bit of a hype train out to Cardfight Vision. If you haven't seen them on YouTube or on Twitch, you got to go follow them, you got to go like them, you got to go subscribe to them, and make sure that this Saturday on June 20th, you are tuning in because there's going to be the Clash of Kings 2. It is going to be some of YouTube's top content creator around Vanguard and a couple people who have managed to win their way into the tournament, and we are going to be playing Vanguard 0 and competing for the ultimate Clash of Kings championship. That is this weekend. That is June 20th. That's Saturday. It's going to be a lot of fun. Well, hopefully it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm hoping to, be in there for longer than one round. But I want to get the hype train going for that because I think it's going to be great. But let's stop because right now we want to talk about what is going on in set 4. I am Jarek. I am with Cherry Blossom Gaming, and welcome to our set 4 meta analysis. Alright guys, so here we go. We've got a little screen up here, our good friends over at Tier Maker. We are going to check this out. I just want to see if this changes the way my screen captures. It does, so we are definitely just going to not capture in that way. We'll capture in this way. So this is over at Tier Maker, and what we're going to be talking about today is we are going to be talking about what my opinion is for the meta, for the tiers of what rank 4 looks like right now. And we've got these decks laid out, and I'm just going to kind of go through them. But before we get in there, I want to kind of talk about what my tiers are and how I'm evaluating decks. So tier 1. These are our staple decks, and the staple decks, I mean, when you're climbing ranked, if you decide to play in external tournaments, you are guaranteed that there's a high percentage of chance that you are going to find these decks. It also is decks that I believe are very, very strong against the majority of the decks that are out there right now. Tier 2, these are really strong decks. They are decks that you might see pop up at a tournament, that you'll definitely still see when climbing rank, and can still really get you very far in the game. Tier 3, they're kind of those fringe decks. They've got some strengths to them, and if you really, really learn the deck well in the intricacies, you can still take them into somewhere like ranked and play, or maybe even surprise as, a second or third deck option or choice in a tournament. But overall, you have to be really, really good, and they just kind of lack the power and the overall power and the capability of competing against kind of these tier 1 and tier 2 decks. And in tier 4 decks, they're, in my opinion, these are just the decks that are completely not viable in the meta right now. Like, if you try and bring them into rank and you're trying to climb with them, you're going to have your struggles. You definitely can't show up at tournaments with these. They're just not there. That doesn't mean they're not fun. That doesn't mean that they're not playable. And I am going to kind of, well, they kind of aren't playable, but I am going to kind of touch on them to talk about a little bit where they might get support down the line, so if you still wanted to invest in those decks that you just enjoyed playing. So I've just got all of these images up here, and we're just going to go down them as they appear and see what they are. The first one we have is Beast Deity. I find it kind of interesting to start off on a Nova Grapplers deck because they're in this weird situation right now. So the Beast Deity deck is definitely a tier 2 deck. My personal opinion is kind of the Beast Deity combination with Perfect Razor, in my opinion, is the best combination of what Nova can play right now, and I do believe that deck, to its completion, is a very high, very, very strong tier 2 deck. I think it's a little bit stronger myself than Perfect Razors on its own, and I definitely believe that it's stronger than trying to play, the Beast Deity deck just on its own. I think the combination is where they are right now, but unfortunately, for Novas, they're going to get Death Army in the future, but they're kind of really struggling right now. Next, we're going to keep it with the Novas, and I know that people kind of want me to put this up here. I'm going to put it as, right now, I can tell you definitively that Blau, to me, is the absolute top of rank 3. I don't believe it's good enough to be in tier 2 and 1. but it's so fringe. Like if I was gonna put it in tier two, it'd be right down to the bottom of tier two. Because here's the thing, Blau can just steal games. If a person doesn't play it right, if you get the perfect combination together and you just start chaining everything together, Blau can just come out of nowhere and steal games. But I feel compared to what the rest of the field right now is, it's not consistent. So, take this as you will, either like really, really bottom of tier two, or the top of tier three. So I would definitely still climb. Like I would take Blau and I would climb and rank, absolutely no issue. I probably wouldn't run it into a tournament. Like you won't see me, and I doubt anyone else at Clash of Kings, kind of running this out. Coco, I love Coco. So for those of you who don't know, I'm an OTT main. I do love OTT. Coco is, I want to put it up here, but that would just be, it's not accurate. Coco to me is a strong tier 2 deck right now. Anytime where you can run Toms and have great card advantage and pretty much always have your perfect guards, it's in a good position. Plus between, no matter what you're running, if you're running the Coco Stand version, if you're running the Imperial Daughter, the ability to hit your numbers on your front line during attacks, like Coco is really, really strong at that. It just kind of lacks a little bit of the defensive numbers. But I'd say Coco is a lot of fun. This one hurts. I started playing Vanguard 0 as a massive Dark Irregulars nerd, but to me right now, it's very close to top of tier 4, maybe bottom of tier 3, but it just lacks the power that a lot of the decks. It lacks a lot of the capability that a lot of the decks. That you can pilot it fairly well. You can get some strong wins. You can do a lot of retiring, but it's just kind of. Dark Irregulars right now is in this weird spot where it's doing what a lot of other decks do, just not as good as other decks can do it. Now, when we get set 6 in global, we're going to see some support for Dark Irregulars that'll kind of pop it back up into the strong tier 3, low tier 2 ranking, and make it playable again for us. But right now, it is just not where we need it to be. Let's look at our first tier 1 deck. Obviously is going to be Draconic Overlord, the End, Dote. It is absolutely one of the staples of the format right now. Not only is it one of the staples of the format right now, it's going to be one of the staples of the format for ever. What it feels like, even if you go to Japan, post-nerf, everything like that, it is still one of the strongest decks that you can pick up and play. It's definitely tier 1. It's definitely a deck you're going to see a lot when climbing ranked and a lot when you're in comp. Here we go. We got our first Dimension Police, Enigma Storm. It's a strong tier 3. It's another one that kind of falls in the same category as Blau. It can really come in and it can steal games. If you're hitting all your triggers, you're getting your pumps, you're getting your crits together, you can really, 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 really just knock off games out of nowhere with this deck, which makes it a lot of fun to play. But unfortunately, it's just not as consistent. It lacks a lot of the power, and other than doing a little bit of climbing and being prepared to struggle sometimes in that climbing for ranked, you're just not going to get a lot done with it. Galahad is just, it's a non-viable deck right now, completely to me, and the same thing with Garamore. There's an argument if I say this is, MLB Garamore variant, that I could put that up as a strong tier 2 right now, because it competes with Dote and it competes with Shadow Paladins fairly well. Sorry, not Shadow Paladins. It competes with Dote and it competes with MLB fairly well because it can always have up interceptors. It can really create some struggles for them. But MLB itself is just superior. So we'll put kind of an asterisk that if this is the MLB variant right now, it can be in tier 2. But if we're just looking at pure Garamore, it's better than Galahad. It's probably also better than Amon, but it's still a tier 4 non-viable deck. Here's Good Stuff Kagero. It's still a strong deck. So this is, running the waterfalls, all the good stuff. It's kind of closer to the bottom of tier 2 when we get down to it. Like, I will take Coco and I will take our Beast DDs and Perfect Razor over top of it. But it's still a strong deck. Kagero does strong things. It's just overall a strong clan. So it's an option. Here we go with our Grand Blue, which unfortunately we're just going to smack down here. This makes me sad. Grand Blue is one of my favorite clans in the actual card game. I absolutely love playing Grand Blue. But right now, the only thing it's really doing is recycling Captain Night Mist, keeping up perfect interceptors. It lacks finish. There's no way to describe it other than saying, it lacks finish. So unfortunately, Grand Blue is going to be here, and we're going to get Cocytus probably within the next month or two. And unfortunately, Grand Blue players, it's not going to change anything. Grand Blue is just going to be one of the decks that struggle for a very, very long time. It's arguably, to me, probably one of the worst decks you can pick up. Like, if you ask me to pick up Grand Blue right now and go against, like, basic Royal Paladins, like, no Galahad, no Garamore, no MLB, just, like, main season Aichi Royal Paladins, I still would probably take main season Aichi Royal Paladins over Grand Blue. The Master, the Tormentor, the everything right now, and I cut off his head on the image. MLB, obviously tier 1. MLB, without the nerfs, without Wingle Brave changed, is definitively the best deck of the format. Like, I could arguably put it up here and call it a tier 0 deck. The only reason I'm not is the global meta seems to be a little bit more balanced, and a long time of being able to watch reviews, talk about the Japanese way to play it. It kind of lets us go there. This is a strong deck to stay involved with, because MLB is going to be tier 1. Still, it's still tier 1. It's not going to fall off of that tier 1 list. If we get the nerfs to Wingle Brave, like we saw in the Japanese in the next couple of months, it will fall down in consistency, but it will still be good. The better part about it is kind of when we get to set 7, through set 5 and 6, but definitely in set 7, what we start to see is a lot more decks that are really populating out this tier 1 and tier 2 range, that will make it a more diverse format. But MLB is here, and it is going to be the best deck, the most consistent deck that you can run in the game for a couple of months at least. Maybe set 8 will change something, or another nerf will come down, but it's going to be around for a while. Next, we get into the Shadow Paladins, and this is where the fun kind of starts in tier 1, is where does this start to go? My personal opinion is I believe Shadow Paladins is actually the second best deck in Vanguard 0 right now. Dote, I think, feels like Dote is a really, really strong deck. It's tier 1. I think it feels more powerful a lot of the time because it has the best matchup against MLB. But against the rest of the field, like, Dote folds to Tsukiyomi. It is one of the worst matchups, and it struggles a lot more. Dote is a very, very grinding game, and it really depends a lot on what your opponent is doing. Like, Dote really takes advantage of opponents making play mistakes. I feel Shadows is just more consistent, and it just has a better match across the field, while still having a strong match against MLB. Like, it's not that its match against MLB is bad. Dote just has the better winning percentage against it. So I personally think that Shadow Paladins is the second best deck that you can play right now. Here's probably my first controversial one that I'm going to put up here. And that's Reindeer not being tier 4. I actually believe Reindeer is tier 3. I have a lot of, now, like, bottom of tier 3. I actually have a lot of success with the Bermuda Triangle builds. I think it's very hard to play. It does lack the finishing power, but it can set up really well, and it can steal games out of nowhere if everything goes your way. So I would have fun ranked. I would never bring it to a tournament. I wouldn't invest a ton of time into it, especially into Reindeer, because it's cards like Riviere and Coral and Pacifica and everything that is going to get the support later. So Reindeer is going to kind of fall off, but I'm going to tell you probably later this week, I'm going to play a lot of Bermuda Triangle because I absolutely love the alt art reindeer that we're going to get, and it will replace this one, which will make me happy all day long. But if you're looking to play a little Bermuda Triangle, I would definitely be on the reindeer. Razors jumps right up here. I'm not going to put it on the other side of Coco. It's a little bit better than Coco. You know, I think Beast Deity is definitely better, but Perfect Razor, it's discount MLB. You're going to get your consistent criticals. You're going to have the power. You're going to be able to hit over things. It generates decent card advantage all the time. It's just not as consistent as what it is, and it's a little bit more straightforward. Like, it's not, when you're running MLB and the crits that they can do, they've also got retiring, they've got other things that they're doing. Razors just isn't doing as much, as why I like the Beast Deity version, because the Beast Deity version gives you extra lines of attack. Riviere, definitely 4. Even with the new buffs, she's still definitely tier 4. But I actually do believe they're like the top of tier 4. If you were to ask me, give me a tournament with these decks, I would... No, I'm going to go like this. Yeah, I'm going to go like this, maybe even like this. Garmor is probably, in my opinion, the best that's in the tier 4. I don't want to put too much time into it because we're not going to play these decks. Dark Irregulars is a little bit down there. I'm just realizing that I did not pull Pale Moon for this video, so we're just going to put Pale Moon in right now. If I were to slot Pale Moon in here, it would be right in between Blau and Dimension Police. Pale Moon is one of those decks, again, if you are super talented at piloting Pale Moon, it can arguably be a low tier 2 deck. Like, it is still a very, very strong and hard to beat deck, but it's very, very hard to pilot, and it's very, very easy to disrupt, which means I think it's really, really good to take in the ranked. But I don't believe that it's good enough to kind of go into tournaments or get kind of past this tier 2, and that's the Golden Beast Tamer version. Let's look at... I'm actually going to skip over Spike Brothers for a minute and go into Tsukiyomi. Tsukiyomi is definitely tier 1. It is, in my opinion, the absolute strongest Oracle Think Tank deck you can be running right now, and it's very strong. I even sometimes, like, I will... And this happened in Japan a lot, too, where kind of this was happening a lot, and they were flipping around. I like Tsukiyomi personally better than Dote. The reason that I'm going to give Dote the stronger tier as a staple is if you're running Tsukiyomi at its absolute best, you're doing a lot of tracking, you're looking at your stacks, you're writing numbers down, you're referencing. It's a lot of gameplay. It's very, very intensive on the mind, and that's kind of the reason, like, I don't like playing it as much in ranked. And when I do play it in ranked, I kind of play it with my brain turned off, like I'm not stack tracking. But if I were to go into a tournament, which I am at Clash of Kings this weekend, I would very, very much probably put, to me, I'm taking Tsukiyomi over Dote. It has a worse matchup against MLB, yes, but I feel that so many people in tournament play Dote, and Tsukiyomi really just has Dote's number. Like, Dote does not have an answer for Tom. You know, Tom comes down, and it's just... in a lot of decks are just better at pressuring Tsukiyomi because Dote plays that kind of that grindy, slower game. Tsukiyomi can just trade damage back and forth with it. So it's definitely tier 1, and probably until set 7, it's going to stay up in tier 1. It'll consistently get pushed back, and then it kind of hits like this power drop where it's going to go from like tier 1 to like top of tier 3. It's just going to skip tier 2 altogether. You know, maybe at the end of set 6, it might be sitting at strong tier 2. Depends on how Battle Sisters look for us. Next, I'm going to jump into Neo Nectar. Neo Nectar, right now, it's going... I put it in here. It isn't out yet. Neo Nectar comes out later this week. We will get the clan event for it. I'm going to be pushing Neo Nectar hard early because I want to experience a little bit of play with it. I had a lot of fun playing with it in the Japanese version, and when it first comes out, Neo Nectar is a strong tier 2 deck. Like, make no mistakes about it. Its ability to always have rear guards up, to finish, to make numbers, like, it's very, very, very good deck. but like basically as soon as set 5 comes out, it's going to drop down to being the top of tier 3. So if you want to play it like just to experience it, then go hard for it, but understand that Neo Nectar is going to drop like a rock as soon as the next set of cards, Narukami Gold Paladins and everything like that come out. It's just not going to be as viable or stand up, but it's going to be a lot of fun to play right now. So I advise, if you can push for it early, push for it early. So I left the Spike Brothers to the end, and there's a reason why. I think this is probably going to be the most controversial pick that I have up here. Spike Brothers is still a tier 1 deck. It is to me. Like, you could argue that Spike Brothers is, strong tier 2, like right at the top. If I'm putting Spike Brothers in tier 2, to me, it's right at the top. But I personally think it's a tier 1. So this is how I would do it. If you're extremely skilled Spike Brothers players, you have a lot of games. Like, I consider myself not extremely skilled, but very skilled at Spike Brothers. It can be up here. If you go and look at a guy like Living Proof, he's the living proof that Spike Brothers is a tier 1 deck, and that it can handle it. If you are good at Spike Brothers, it's going to be a tier 2 deck. So it's kind of where I bounce it around, and I'm pretty consistent. Like, I play Spike Brothers a lot. It's, I'd say, probably my second favorite clan next to OTT right now. And I take down MLB, Shadows, Dote pretty consistently. The actual only deck that's kind of in this tier 1 and tier 2 that gives me consistent fits is Tsukiyomi, if they have everything up and are just managed to protect themselves and do that one damage that they need to do, because Spike Brothers does leave itself open quite a bit. So take it as either the top of tier 2, bottom of tier 1. For me, because this is my personal list when I'm playing, I'm going to leave it in tier 1. If you take the time to learn it, it's going to be good. The best thing about taking the time to learn Spike Brothers and invest now is when we do get set 7 and get the second clan event for Spike Brothers. When that comes out, Spike Brothers is so strong. Like, it'll kind of dip down to the bottom of tier 2, top of tier 3 as the next 2 sets come out, when it doesn't have the cards to keep up with it anymore at what they're doing, especially, cross rides and limit breaks and everything like that. But when it gets its stuff in, Revenge of the Crusher 2, it's going to pop back right up there to be top of tier 2, bottom of tier 1 again. So this is my tier list. This is where I believe the meta kind of stands right now. And just to recap, is in your tier 1, your MLB, your Shadows, and your Dote, they are, to this day in Japan, these are all still tier 1 decks. So if you've invested in these are going to be safe decks. Tsukiyomi is going to fall off a bit, but it's still going to be another month, maybe 2 months before Tsukiyomi falls off. And then the Battle Sisters are there. And I actually think in the global meta, the Battle Sisters are going to be more powerful. I think they're much more overlooked in the Japanese meta. They had a brief run in and then kind of went down. Spikes, definitely worth investing in. They'll have a little bit of a downturn, but they're going to come back up in a really good way. And then kind of unfortunately, the rest to me right now from what we've seen, other than Pale Moon and Dark Irregulars, are going to get support. Like the Pale Moon support in set 6 is going to push that up to a tier 1 deck with Lukier. Lukier is fantastic, so Pale Moon's not a bad to be. Again, if I remembered to put Pale Moon in here, they'd be right in between Blau and Enigma right now. So I hope that you found some value in this video today. I would love it if you like the video, if you like the tier list, give me a like, give me a subscribe, bang that notification button if you're watching this on YouTube, so then that way you can continue to follow. If you're following on Twitch, I would love it if you if you joined. We're going to be doing deck testing all this week for the Clash of Kings tournament. That is going to take place on Saturday. Thanks to Card Fight Vision for hosting that. That's going to be excited. It's going to be commentated by amazing people like Different Fight. We're going to see guys like Living Proof is going to be back, defending his championship, and there's just going to be a ton of great content creators who are there, who are participating. It is going to be an absolutely epic tournament, and I can't wait to be a part of that. Other than that, thank you so much. I will be back tomorrow night, and we will be running some Spike Brothers on stream. Talk to you later, guys.